Welcome everybody to Rhythm and Resilience. How do we thrive through this universal reset? For some of you that have not been with us before, I was thinking, downloading through my own experience of struggling kind of the first few weeks with COVID-19, that my spirit kept saying, Michelle, you've got to find a rhythm so you can have some resilience through this reset. And so in doing that, it said, well, if you're struggling, probably other people are struggling too. So hence, now we have this program. We're on day 7. I just want to remind you that you can catch it on YouTube. Hopefully you're getting the emails that tells you where to go afterwards as well. So that's exciting. A couple of housekeeping things. If you are not muted and you're not Hailee, please mute yourself. For some reason, it's not muting you when you when you come into the conference with us. The Zoom chat is open. I would love to have it be engaging and find out kind of what questions you have. There we go. What questions you have throughout the event, so that Eleanor will help me capture those so Hailee can answer those. As well as kind of what are your takeaways and what's your wins, because I love to celebrate wins. So I thought today we'd start with a little bit of a grounding exercise. This is actually Eleanor's idea. Eleanor is my admin helping us get through this. So Eleanor, today what we're going to do is I'm just going to have you right in the moment where you're at. I want you to think about where and what are your energy drains? Where and what are your energy drains? Feel free to put it in the chat. I've been focusing on some of my energy drains the last few days that I've had for a couple of years. One of them is my Women's Business Enterprise certification, and I've been sitting on my desk to tweak a little bit and make sure they have everything right. And so I got a chance to talk to the guy that runs the program yesterday, and oddly enough, over the last year, he has not had much time for me. But yesterday he did. So I thought, well, great, I'm checking off that. So you wrote something, Hailee, what I obsess about the future. Yes, there's a saying that when you have anxiety, you're thinking you're living in the future, and when you have depression, you're living in the past. So how can we live more in the present? So today, our guest, Hailee Bland-Walsh, is going to be helping us make sure we create movement into our life. She's an entrepreneur. She's an advocate. When she's not leading a spin class, training clients, or giving high fives, you can find her success as a founder and owner of City Gym to educate and motivate other entrepreneurs and leaders. She's an interim executive director of Transformations Youth Organization. She's a writer, speaker, movement guru, and transformational coach, wife, rescue pup mom, and just a wonderful community advocate. Hailee, welcome to Rhythm and Resilience.
Thank you. This is so fun.
Well, first of all, I love that big shirt, Kansas City. So talk a little bit, we've never really dove into what is Transformations Youth Organization. And I know that I was teeing this up yesterday. And if I remember right, probably the 1 out of 2 times I've watched the ESPY Awards in my life, you guys had a commercial on that. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so kind of two separate things. Transformations Youth Organization is actually a nonprofit here located in the Kansas City metro area. It's a social support group for trans, gender expansive, and gender non-binary youth, ages 12 to 24. We actually have 2 groups. One is our general youth group, which is ages 12 to 18. And then we have a group specifically for trans young women, ages 16 to 24, that's led all by trans women of color, local trans women of color. So the backstory to that is the commercial that you were just talking about. So I opened City Gym, it'll be 9 years in August. And about a year after we opened the doors, a person walked in the door and said, hey, some friends of mine got a tour this weekend of your facility and said that you have spaces for all gender, like shower suites and bathroom suites for all genders. And I said, we do. So anyway, he and I became dear friends. His name's Drew, and he came to City Gym because he had reached a place in his transition where he was no longer feeling comfortable in his current gym environment and wanted a space that was radically inclusive. And so he found City Gym. So through our friendship, we created a group called Momentum, which is a group for trans men. In 2015, we were selected by Google in a nationwide anonymous search to find a small business that was serving a portion of the LGBT community. And so they selected City Gym. And they actually created like a kind of a docu-series type commercial. It was a 2.5-minute commercial. And they decided to run that commercial in the 2.5-minute break before Caitlyn Jenner received the Arthur Ashe for Courage Award. So it kind of, it was one of those things where us being selected was serendipitous, and then Caitlyn coming out, and our commercial kind of aligning with that. And then Google reached out to ABC and asked them if they would consider letting them buy the 2.5 minutes before Caitlyn accepted her award. And ABC had never allowed one company to run 2.5 minutes of a commercial before, but because they felt so strongly in the message, they allowed them to do that. So 7.1 million people saw that commercial. I was sitting in the audience. My wife was in the audience. Drew was in the audience. He and I created the group together. And then Jake, who's actually in the commercial, we were all in the audience together. We were kind of separated. Jake and I were down low, and Drew and Tiff were up high. And so I didn't know, I mean, I knew the commercial was airing, but I didn't see the commercial. I instead was live in the audience. So watched Caitlyn accept the award and give this speech that was transformative. And that was it. We stood up to leave, turned on my phone, and I had 200 text messages or something crazy. People like you had just tuned in to see the ESPYs and were like, is that your city? That's your City Gym? And so because of my work in the trans community supporting trans adults, I kind of fell into work with trans youth because so many folks were reaching out to me. Maybe their kiddo had come out, or some youth in their life had come out, and they were seeking me out because they thought I might have resources. So I just started gathering resources almost in a grassroots fashion. And fast forward to, let's see, when did we start Transformations? It had been a group, social support group, before we became an official nonprofit for a year. And then we officially became a nonprofit in late 2018. So I am their interim executive director right now, as we build out the organization, but we fully intend to hire someone from the TG&C community to run the organization at some point.
TG&C community. Never heard of that.
Gender nonconforming. TG&C. So that's the short way of saying trans, gender expansive, gender non-binary.
Well, it's a whole different time these days. So I don't want this, everything I do is really about celebrating people. And I want to tell you, I stole that term from my friend Tess Master, the Blender Girl. And how do we really celebrate people? How do we give people guidance? How do we provide connection? And most importantly, how do we provide hope? And you provided hope for not only that community, just more open doors, but you've also provided hope for so many people. Talk about City Gym and what makes you guys special.
Yeah, one of the things I say in the commercial actually is that City Gym is a place for everyone. And so what a testament it is to our ability to be inclusive that a group like Momentum would find a space in transformation or inside of City Gym. And so from our beginning, inclusivity is a part of our ethos. So we're really, really intentional about creating space where folks who feel traditionally left outside of the fitness industry are welcomed in really intentionally and enthusiastically, because I feel really strongly that the wellness industry can be a very exclusive place. And those who need us most are often not the folks who are walking through the front door. And so I wanted to create an environment where people are safe enough that they could even just walk through the front door, and then give them the support, education, encouragement to give them a laboratory to transform. Because before you can have any sort of epiphany or transformation, you have to feel safe, and then you have to feel inspired, and then you have to get some education. And so that's really what City Gym is it's an opportunity for folks to change their life.
On Tuesdays, through this rhythm and resilience, we've called it Total Health Tuesday. So that's one reason why I invited you specifically for today. But I want to dive into the word safe, because I think a lot of people don't feel safe right now.
Right.
So what, first of all, how are you feeling safe in this transition? I know you have a business like I do, and we were on a call recently together for the chamber talking about guiding people through that. And whoa, what a whirlwind the last year's been. I mean, the last month's been, right? Feels
Yeah.
like a year, and it's only
Yeah.
been, I mean, it's been 4 weeks really this week. Holy
No,
sugar.
I know. It's a month. It feels like a year for sure.
Yeah. So talk about the word safe. What does that feel like, look like, taste like?
So, in reference to right now, for me, I have really been, I've been looking for grounding. And so I've been seeking those people who I feel like can provide me a safe place to be able to vent, but also can give me good advice or can support me where I am. So right now, safety to me looks like my community. I love helping people, but one of the things that I have really celebrated during this time is the way in which my community has helped me back.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been really leaning on my City Gym family, my friends and family to provide me support and safety. And so that's sort of where I've gotten my most groundedness, is just in linking arms with people that I love, whether it's a Zoom call or a FaceTime or a phone call or text message check-ins. Or yesterday I did a socially distanced walk with one of my dear friends and mentors, Tina Sprinkle, who you all probably know. She and I walked on opposite sides of the street and screamed at each other the whole time. And and I felt safer when I got back to my house after our walk. I just felt like, yes, there's someone out there who loves me and who has my back. So in terms of right now, how I'm feeling safe, feeling connected to my community is really the thing that is grounding me the most. And then safety, when we talk about it at City Gym, I mean, it's everything from emotional to actual physical safety. And so one of the ways in which folks tend to feel unsafe in wellness spaces is just simply bathroom and shower spaces. They can be very uncomfortable places for folks who maybe don't feel comfortable showering in a community space or being unclothed in front of other people. And so one of the things that I really tried to create with our facility is a sense of safety. So you can walk into a shower suite, close the door, and you're totally safe. And just creating that physical safety sets a foundation for the emotional safety to happen. So emotional safety is when instructors are using inclusive language. So they're saying things, they're recognizing all people in their classes, and they're using language that really welcomes folks in an intentional way. That starts to build that rapport and that safety, because someone who might feel traditionally left outside of the fitness industry, when they feel seen and recognized, they think, oh, wow, they see me. And so that builds safety. And so those are a few of the ways that we do, that we try to really intentionally create safety when we talk about that word at City Gym.
You know, I'm going to age myself here because I'm a couple decades older than you. And, I want to trying to be, I'm not the word politically correct, but just seeing people, how, the whole pronoun thing, his, her, it's, I feel like sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to say. So I say nothing. And so give us a little bit of guidance of how do we navigate these times? Because you have a few young people on here and you have some older people on here. How do we navigate that time? And then I'm going to shift the conversation. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that it's never inappropriate to ask someone what their preferred pronouns are. It's never, oftentimes we assume, we see the way someone appears, and then we make an assumption about the way that they identify. And so if you're unsure, you can always ask, hey, I would love if you could share with me your preferred pronouns. And just even having that awareness to ask someone who might potentially fall outside of a binary or what your expectation might be, wow, that creates so much love, that creates so much connection for them right away. They think, okay, I'm safe here. This person gets it. And so it's never inappropriate to just in a straightforward way, but a really kind and loving way, be like, hey, I've been trying to be more intentional about using people's preferred pronouns. Would you mind sharing yours with me? And then they're like, oh yeah, sure. I use he, him, his, or whatever, or they, them. Thank you for asking. I will say, as somebody who is obviously navigating that community a lot, it's not about getting it perfect, right? It's about trying, and it's about having the awareness to even acknowledge that there's something that exists beyond the binary. So just even being intentional about asking, saying, hey, I'm trying to really meet people where they are, and I want to be really intentional about the pronouns that I use. So would you share with me your pronouns? Or if you're going to be in a mixed space, like a meeting, and you want to and maybe there's someone in the room you want to make feel really included, you can say, okay, we're going to start today's meeting with our names and our pronouns. And you just go around the room and everybody shares their pronouns, and then you move on. It's just a real easy way to set that tone, so that person in the room or people in the room immediately know, okay, safe space. I'm welcome here.
Well, great. So just for everybody on the call today, on the chat, that's a great way to communicate with us. So if you have questions for Hailee, please feel free to put them in there. We'll get to them in the time, so you're not going to mess up our flow. Also, to transformationskc.org is a website, is also in there. If you happen to have people in your life, which we all probably have people if we're paying attention. I remember back in the mid 90s in my old office, and I kind of have my life, and some of you know these offices. My first office, my first 3 years, my next is 6 years, my last 19 years. But I remember being in that second time frame where I looked around my reception area, and there was a multimillionaire, somebody who was homeless, and a transgender. And I thought, okay, you're serving the right population, and you're just serving, you're open, being loving and kind. And so thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about, I'm actually preparing a talk. I've been working with some of my corporate clients on kind of just helping support people with their well-being during this time of, gosh, now they don't have the right workstation, they're super stressed, they have anxiety, some of them have lost their job, they're displaced. And I know you had to shut down your whole gym.
We did.
Yes. So it impacted you on so many levels, financially, spiritually, it's your baby, and I totally can resonate with that. But share, and you did this, ask for help. So in my preparation today, I've got a little handout here, because it's the calls after this. And here's one of the questions for people, and this is for our audience here today. Red light, green light. Red light means you should stop because you're going to end up someplace you don't want to go. Yellow light, proceed with caution. And then green light, keep moving. So here's the question. I do not ask for help from others. And the other one is, I ask for help from others. Where are you at on that spectrum? Are you a green light? And Hailee, I think it's fair to say that probably you're a much better giver than receiver. Is that true?
That's true. Generally in life, that's true. Yeah.
That's true. So talk about ways that you ask for help, mm-hmm. and how people show up for you, and then ways you give help. Two different.
So one of the things I've tried to be really intentional about, so time for me is my most valuable resource I think for most of us, right? So as I am trying to live my life in a way that's most impactful, I have to manage my time around the things that I feel like I need to be doing most, right? So that means I have to have really good boundaries. I have to be able to say no. Or to be able to say, I can't do this. Can I have your help? Or I'm going to need more time. Or are you flexible about this thing because I'm trying to fit something else in? So one of the ways in which I have been asking for help is being honest about where I am emotionally. If, for example, I'm having a day that's really scheduled and I know that I've got to kind of get through my day before I can, to just get it accomplished, and someone will send me a text message. Let's say it's an advisor with transformations, and it's important to them, obviously, but it's also not, the timing of it is not ideal for me, and it can wait a little bit. So I've been really intentional about saying, hey, thanks for reaching out. This is really important to me. I do not have time to do this today, but I'm going to put it on my list for tomorrow or the next day. And I promise I'm going to get back to you, and we're going to have a really thorough conversation about this. I'm going to be there. I'm going to support you. In the past, something like that would have derailed my day. I would have been like, oh, I have to figure out how I fit this in. And then I'd be stressed out and maybe resentful at the person who asked me, or stressed at the next thing I was going to do. So by both acknowledging that something's really important to me, and also I don't have time to do it right now, has been a way that I've been asking for help. It's the way that it allows me to be focused on the things that I need to get done in a day, or just being intentional about my energy level, my spirit. Recently, folks have been sending me all these great, you should do a 45-day challenge and you should be training clients online. And I have been grieving pretty hard. And I have said, thank you so much for thinking of me. These are all really, really great ideas. You know, it's kind of interesting. I'm not really functioning at a very high level right now. I love you for your support, and maybe I'll get there, but I'm not there right now. And just being able to acknowledge where I'm really feeling, what I'm really feeling, and then asking for just a little bit of space, has been a way that I've been asking for help. So those are ways that I ask for help. And then the ways that I give help, I tend to be an acts of service type of person. So I will ask someone how I can support them, or I will sort of intuit a way that I can help them. So I've been on this, I've been delivering juice on a weekly basis from my good friends from Ruby Jeans. They're doing big gallon juices. And so in order to support Chris, I've been purchasing juices, and then I've been taking them around to all of my people as a way to say, like, you know, I drop it off at my sister's house or my sister-in-law or my best friend Sarah's house. They have kiddos and whatever. And it's just a way to say, I love you and I'm thinking of you, and here's some juice. You know, here's a way to boost your immune system. And so, or I'll say to them like, hey, I know things are really stressful right now. How can I support you? Those are ways in which I give help. Or I'll say, can you think of anything that I could do to support you right now? Or I'll say to somebody, you know, like my very closest friends know that I'm someone that if they just need 15 minutes to vent, they can call me and vent. So those are sort of some of the ways that I give. But I try to ask people what they need to, because I think sometimes we assume. While it might be thoughtful, it also might not be what they need. So being intentional about asking people how you can support them, I think, is also key when you're trying to give.
You know, I'm an active service kind of gal too, so I can appreciate that. And Eleanor, let's put in Ruby Jeans juice in here so that we could give them a shout out to everybody here, as well as people listening to this call. And Chris is doing some wonderful work over there. So talk a little bit about what was your biggest challenge before COVID-19?
This summer, late in the summer, we closed our downtown location. So we had expanded to a second location downtown. And I had to close the location in July of this last year. And that, from a business perspective, was probably my hardest challenge. It felt very personal for a very long time that the space wasn't successful. And it took me some real work to kind of pull myself out of it feeling so personal and really evaluate it with my entrepreneur brain and just say, you know, some things work, some things don't work. It's not about it not working. It's about the pivot, right? It's about how you recover. It's about what's next. It's about the lessons that you learned. And a really good friend of me said, think of it this way. It's like a really expensive PhD program. I said, I would like that diploma on my wall so I feel a little bit better about it. But she was absolutely right. There was so much that I learned about business and about running a business and being successful in business that I learned from closing a business that I would have never learned had I not had to close a business. So before COVID, that was my biggest lesson. And I'm finding that my big lessons are really around surrender and letting go and knowing when to let go.
I find it fascinating that sometimes when we have that, can you imagine having both of those locations and those mortgages right now?
No. I mean, yeah. I honestly think about it every day. I think, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that we don't have two locations. And right afterwards, the building that we were in our Waldo location, I was actually able to buy the building. And so that by closing downtown, I could purchase the building that we're in Waldo, and did that and closed on that in January. So I'm not paying a landlord. I'm paying mortgage, right, to a bank that I can negotiate with, but that's easier for me to do potentially than with a landlord. And I own that building. So there are things that after I let go of downtown, and I knew this on a head level, I knew the second I let go that so much good was going to come. And it was still so hard for me to let go. It was so hard for me to let go because it felt so personal. And I think for those who are entrepreneurs or creators or artists or those things that we create, they feel like they feel like children. And it literally felt like I was like closing the door on a child. And also I knew that all of the energy that I was spending on something that wasn't working, if I spent 1/3 of that energy on what was working, my business would explode. And so those sort of things have been the lessons, the silver linings, if you will. And they took some time. And even after closing downtown, I had some grief. I was immediately relieved. And then I had a little bit of lingering grief. And then I was like, okay, so what's next? What's next? How am I going to learn? And I feel that same sort of, in a bigger way, but in that same sort of kind of wave happening with what's happening with COVID also.
I can totally relate to what's next. I can also relate to opening a second location. Most people don't know this because it's been so many years ago. I opened a second location early 2000s within a medical facility. And the two partners, the two OBGYNs that loved whole person health, one retired and then one got hurt. And so all of a sudden the people that were your champions were no longer there. Okay. So that was a learning lesson. I like the PhD in that. And then in 2008, we were going to open a location on the east side of town at Unity Village. And my banker, who I want to kiss his feet right now, Bob Bernier, and he said, Michelle, I'm not going to give you the money. He said, I'm not going to give you the money, because he knew what the market was doing. And literally within 45 days, the crash happened. And so, you got to look for those lessons. And I'm trying to, not trying, I am seeing those lessons in COVID now that we're 4 weeks in, or 1 year in, whichever you want to call it. Feels like a year or maybe 10 years out of my life, but it's really been only 4 weeks at a time. And so I'm thinking about, okay, Michelle, what are you going to, and this is one of the questions for you is what are you going to move forward? As you think about the lessons you're learning right now, the silver lining, how are you going to implement that your life post-COVID?
I think the first thing that's bubbled to the surface for me is that I need to slow down. Mm-hmm. And I have been refining. I mean, I've been in this process of like letting things go and saying no and being really focused. And I do this talk all the time. It's called Balance is Bullshit. Balance is BS. Because, and the takeaway is that you can't do everything, right? So this idea of balance and perfectionism is not realistic. So what are the things meant for you to do? So I have been really intentional about doing that. And still, I was doing so much stuff that I shouldn't have been doing. And I don't, and I don't even mean, I mean, just stuff. I had no time in my day to think or to be, and I'm going on these long walks and I'm feeling really creative, and I'm feeling like things in my own sort of integration are happening. But when I was never giving myself a second to just be, those things weren't really coming together. And so for me, the big thing that's come to the surface is I'm going to do less. I'm going to do less stuff.
That old saying, less is more.
Less is more. And like I said, I was like, I am the champion of less is more before this. But this has really shown me what really intentionally slowing down looks like. And I keep thinking, how do we go back to what we were doing? And I mean, we, the global we, how do we go back to that? And what I have The other thing that I have been focused on is that we can't say go back to normal. There's a new normal. We're all going to come away from this different, in good ways and maybe not good ways, some of us. And there is going to be a new normal. And so it is embracing that new normal that I think is another one of my takeaways.
Well, what guidance would you give people listening to this show today about how to really dial in and be intentional about what is theirs to do? I would say prior to COVID, if I got asked to do something, is it mine to do or not mine to do? And that was the question. And so many times I think I was doing things for somebody else, and I think that's okay. But this time has really helped me reflect on what is my path, because sometimes just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
Absolutely. And the hard thing, especially for folks who want wins, we're like, oh yeah, I could sit on that board, or I could do that thing, or I could knock out that project, because you could do it. And so it's kind of seductive to say yes to some of those things. But one of the things the tool that I have created for myself, and also for this talk that I do, it's called the Wheel of Alignment. And so you take your values, so you select 4 core values, and you can just Google core values, and you can do it just a very high level, sort of process with yourself. What are your 4 core values? And then you drill those down into your skill sets. So what are your superpowers? So like one of my superpowers is that I'm a connector. So like one of my values is nurturing. So I will mother anything that lets me, alive or plants, humans, ideas, spaces. I nurture things. And so one of my superpowers is that I'm a connector, right? And so where those two things intersect, those are my things to do. And they come up in so they're really specific things for me to do. And that is how I've begun to center my life on what are mine to do. So that's why I'm the executive director of transformations. It seems maybe at first blush like, why is this cis woman executive director of a youth group that serves trans and gender expansive and non-binary youth? But I have a specific skill set and a specific community, and it intersects in just the right way that I am the right person to do this job right now. And so because of that, I'm able to really pour myself into that work, knowing that I am uniquely positioned to move this organization to a place where we can hire somebody else to do this job. And that is my goal, to hire someone else to do this job eventually. But those are the ways in which you do it. You figure out, like, what are your values? What are your superpowers? What were you put on the earth to do? And where those things intersect, those are your specific things to do. And that means it's not everything is for you to do. And for folks who are nurturing, or for folks who consider them empaths, or who are acts of service human beings, we tend to mistake things that we can do for things that we should do. And by doing this little worksheet for yourself, you'll start to really highlight, and then you can be really focused on, and then it allows me to say no. And sometimes the no is really hard. Sometimes it feels really personal. Sometimes it's saying no to people that I love in order to give myself more time and space to do the thing that's meant for me to do. But that is also part of the work, right? Is figuring out what to say no to, because in pursuit of your biggest yes, you have to say no. You have to say no. And so that is the way that I was already refining. And then this has become sort of life refinement on steroids.
But you got to be really intentional when we come back from this. It's given us a great opportunity. So you're making me think of two things. Years ago, I read Lori Beth Jones' book about vision. And I can't think of the name of it. It's downstairs. I'm actually going to pull it out based on our conversation today. And it really helps you get really clear on your mission and your purpose. I think it's called The Path by Lori Beth Jones. And if we were in the military, someone would come up to us, and they put, the opposing force would say, state your mission. And if you didn't know your mission, then it would be, you would be killed.
Yeah.
And so this is a good reminder for us all to really dial into what our mission is. So I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to not put you on the spot, but I'm going to put it in the back of your mind and for you to get back to me by email. I would love to see you do your workshop, maybe for our wellness community,
Oh,
about Corvin. So
yeah.
you might want to think about it before you say yes.
Yeah, no, something's been brewing in me as well. And so in creating this wheel of alignment, what's come as a result of that is a personal mission statement. And so my mission statement is to inspire people to radical self-care, mind, body, and spirit, because well people with a capital W transform the world. And I want to live in that world, right? I want to live in a world where everybody is doing exactly what they are meant to do, so that A, I don't have to do the work they're doing. And B, because when we're all doing the work that we're supposed to be doing, imagine that world. Imagine being able to live in that world. So that from that worksheet of figuring out what are my sort of like specific things to do has come this larger mission statement of, and so that includes my writing, that includes my speaking, that includes leading a spin class sometimes, that includes dropping off juice to people that I love, right? And supporting a small business that I'm really passionate about, and giving to people that I really care about, and doing it in a way that's, very well with a capital W. So that's been another result of the work, doing the wheel of alignment.
Well, I have so many things to say to you. And first of all, I am so stinking proud of you, having watched you, and we're in good hands with young people like you. I'm also thinking you mentioned the acts of service, and Eleanor, if you'd go to Rainy Day Books, let's if you decide to buy the Path, Creating Your Mission, or possibly Mr. Chapman's book on love languages. I can't remember his first name, but if you'd put Rainy Day in there, let's support another great local company, Rainy Day Books, who's just, business has been a little bit devastated as well. So we'll put that in there too. Gary Chapman, thank you, Michelle. Gary Chapman's book is really great about figuring out what is your gift. Is it time? Is it service? Is it words of affirmation? Is it touch? Is it gifts? And so thank you for considering that. So this is a great time for anybody on the call to send us your questions as we start to round the corner to start to wrap up our conversation.
I also want to say thank you for calling me a young person. That was amazing.
Well, you're definitely doing some great work. So for those people on the call, obviously one of your expertise is you kind of remind me, I'm a chiropractor, but I'm more than a chiropractor, and you're a trainer, and you're more than a trainer. And I love learning more about you. We've had more quality time since COVID than we've ever had before.
It's so great.
Qualities are kind of an air quotes here.
Linings, more time with Dr. Robin.
Well, so share with us a little bit if we're struggling to find a routine for working out in that physical quadrant. What would you suggest to people?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to find a time. So I'm going to kind of give you best practice right now, where you have no schedule potentially, and then best practice when maybe you're falling more into a routine with work and life. So right now, for me, I find that I am most likely to do it if I do it between 10 and 2. Earlier than that, I'm getting up, I'm kind of getting into my day. I like to kind of pat around my house and sort of feel grounded and things like that. And so my energy is highest right around 10 a.m. So that's probably when I'm going to work out. Gives me a chance to make breakfast and all that sort of stuff. And so I would say find a time when your energy is highest. So maybe that's first thing in the morning, right? Before your day gets started. Maybe that's a couple of hours into your day. Maybe you're an evening person, you work out in the evening, and that's when your energy is highest, right? 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. your brain comes alive. I would say listen to that, what that intuition is telling you. And that's the other thing is, I think there's a lot of should in the wellness energy. We should do this, we should do that. And I'm really tapping into my own personal intuition around what I want to do. What do I want to do? Do I want to have an intense workout today, or do I want to have kind of a moderate, expansive, maybe a longer hour and a half long walk, which is not something I would have ever given myself the luxury to even enjoy, because it was about efficiency, right? So it was like, I got to get everything I need to get done in 1 hour. So I was going to like work, I was going to lift as hard as I could, and then I was going to do cardio as hard as I could, and then I was going to be as efficient as possible in 1 hour. And I'm just sort of like, ugh, efficiency right now just feels yucky to me. So I have been like, I went on 2 long walks yesterday, 2-hour-long walks, one in the morning with Tina and then one in the afternoon by myself. And it just felt good. I just felt grounded. I liked being outside. It didn't feel particularly challenging, but rather it felt like it was filling my cup. And so I think listening to your intuition about your movement right now. And so, I've also I bought a pair of rollerblades because inline skates, because I was like, what other things do I love to do outside besides bike and run? And the first thing that came up was rollerblading. I used to rollerblade and like all as a kid and then through college, I loved to rollerblade. I went to school at the University of Minnesota. So there was like a trail system there, and I would just get out on my rollerblades and skate for hours. And so I bought a pair of rollerblades. And like when they arrived, I felt such a sense of joy. I was like, they're here. The rollerblades have arrived. And it's been a long time since I felt like that kind of joy around a movement thing. So I would say, listen to that feeling of like, what do you want to do? Do you want to go for a hike? Do you want to do yoga? Do you want to run? Do you want to is now the time for you to do those more aggressive exercise things? Get tuned in, ask yourself, listen to what your body is telling you to do. That would be my advice right now. And then I think even as we move into a more scheduled time, again, I think finding those times of day that you have the most energy, if you can, right? I tend to work out in the morning because my days get so long that if I wait until 5 or 6 o'clock, my energy level is pretty low. And the stress of the day is kind of weighing on me. So that's not an ideal time for me to be working out. So I'll do it first thing in the morning. I'm also a huge accountability person. So because I am so community focused, I really, so I actually pay a trainer. I've been paying one of the trainers at City Gym to train me 2 times a week since the day we opened our door, because he will walk into my office and be like, let's go lift some stuff together. And I'm like, oh man. And I pay him to do it. He makes me do stuff that I wouldn't do on my own. And so I like that accountability. And so I actually pay him. I have a boxing coach that I see 2 times a week. When I was training for my half marathon, I paid one of our performance coaches at the gym to help me put together a plan. Could I do it myself? Yes, I am a trainer. This is what I do. But that was the thing, is that I do this for people all day long. So it feels good to have somebody else take care of me for an hour, right? It's like you're a massage therapist. Getting a massage feels really luxurious because you're giving to people all the time. So those accountability tools or groups or classes or instructors or trainers or whatever, those frameworks for me, and I think for others, can be really powerful. So as we move back more into schedule, think about frameworks for accountability, whether it's a workout partner or a class or an instructor or a trainer.
Well, I love getting adjusted, so I'm with you on that, and I'm missing massages.
Right?
You know what? And Michelle mentioned this. It was great how you looked at for different seasons of your life. You know, I like to work out in the morning, but I love to go for walks mid-afternoon, which this time has afforded me to do that. Yeah. But I find that my mind gets going. Once my mind gets going, I won't take the time to actually work out like I want to. So now's a really wonderful time if you have any more questions, but also to think about the love that you want to share with Hailee at the end. So, and Eleanor, I want to tell me what you said about pivot. That's a great quote. Can you go back to that a little bit? And Rhiannon gave you some love about that. I
just said, it's not about, it wasn't about the loss, right? It wasn't about staying in the loss. It was about the pivot. How am I going to recalibrate from here? And actually my dad, who's an economics major, kept saying to me, what's your opportunity cost? What's your opportunity cost? What are you pouring into downtown, into something that'll never work? That if you gave half of that effort to something that's working. And it literally was like, it finally clicked after he said it. And I was like, yeah, I mean, if I put this much energy into what is already working, think about how successful it could be. And I think that that's true in like relationships, right? Friendships, romantic relationships. That's true at work. That's true as you're figuring out where to put your energy. Is it's like if you're pouring it into a black hole, it's not moving. There's not going to be any movement forward there. So for me, it was really about the pivot. How do you recalibrate? And how does this not feel like a failure? How do I not get mired down in the shame, right? I was like, oh man, what are people going to think about me? And they're going to judge me for not being able to make this thing work. And what I received when I sent an email out to our downtown members, I sent it out to all City Gym members, was an amazing amount of love and support and grace. And people were like, oh, this is all successful entrepreneurs go through this. This is no big, this just means something bigger is waiting for you. And it was just like this outpouring of grace and love and support. And I thought, man, why did I ever doubt that that was going to be the way that folks were going to respond? And also it freed me up to really be mindful about what was working and how I could, with just a little bit of extra effort, kind of keep things that were already going really well, just kind of figure out how I added that. And so I reduced my overall stress by 200%, and I increased my overall productivity by 100%. And so I think sometimes we hang on to stuff thinking that we're going to, that there's going to be some external judgment or some, or we have some fear about failure or whatever. But really, so often the lesson is in the letting go. That's where the lesson is. It's not in the hanging on, because I can endure hard things, and I should not always endure them. I should sometimes just say, that's okay. I'm not going to learn this lesson this way.
I used to have in my office a sign that said, in the end, it will not matter how well what you learned, how well you loved, it'll be how well you learned to let go. Something like that, paraphrase that. Hailee, how can people find more about you and connect with you?
So right now I'm trying to build my Instagram channel, because when you are trying to get a book sold to a publisher, they're really focused on your social channels and your ability to sell a book. So Instagram would be a great way to stay connected to me. And I put out lots of content on my Instagram, and it runs sort of the wellness gamut, right? Just like you said, I'm a trainer, and that's how I get in front of people. But I'm speaking, I'm writing. Also, if you have, if you're looking for someone to do a training for your business or for your group, or to speak at all on, a variety of things, I'm for hire to do that sort of stuff. Also, again, just trying to increase my platform. And
I'm glad you used the word for hire.
For hire.
I get that as a speaker, but can you come do this? I would love to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got time, and time's the greatest resource. Even people are like, I have so much time now. I'm like, I don't have a lot of time right now, even in the middle of this pandemic. I have more time.
Yes.
Definitely different. So we like to close the show with a couple things, and I'm going to add a new closing to the show here today with a quote at the end, because I'm a quote nerd. But I want to kind of give you some of the love that people have been sharing, Hailee, during this time with you. And you did not say this, but someone said this, and I think that this would be true for you. People over politics during this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
People over politics during this pandemic. And then, Jackie said, great advice. Dorothy said, being real during this pandemic. Great words. Love your honesty. It's okay to say no. I know when I don't realize how persuasive I am, but when I can ask people to do things, that's why I always say, you know what, think about it, because I want you to take the pause so people know that there's no pressure. Michelle said that's huge, giving yourself space to grieve and being intentional about how you use your time to help others. A great lesson. Once again, Dorothy, being real is the best way to get through this. Great advice. It's about the pivot. Rhiannon loved that. Of course, Dorothy said I would take the workshop. And Eleanor wants to do the worksheet. And so just so much good stuff. and Rhiannon is just making great points. The lesson in letting go from Michelle and Melissa, just saying thank you to you and great information. Hailee, I want to tell you how you inspire me. And it's emotional because I have been watching you. And what this gives me time to do by doing this Rhythm and Resilience series is being able to say thank you to my friends, for people that maybe I don't get to see a lot. But I love your positivity. I love your courage on how you're out speaking, being a voice for those that have trouble speaking for themselves, that other people maybe wouldn't listen to, but because it's you they're listening to. I'm listening more because of you. I also appreciate how you champion other businesses, how you're helping Chris out and the other people you're helping out. And I appreciate how real you are. And so thank you for taking time to be on the Rhythm and Resilience series today. I'm forever grateful.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and this is so fun, and what a great group. And my right now, like I said, my sort of like litmus test of is this for me to do, is do I get as much back as I feel like I've given, and I've gotten more back today. So thank you for that.
Well, we've all gotten something out of you today. And so we've got a couple quotables, but we got a quotable from yesterday with our guest, Terry Grieg. And she has a foundation called Powered by Hope. And we're posting these on social as well, but just as a reminder, and you're doing this, Hailee. I love when I get chills right now. I love it when the person speaking today really is just a follow-up from the person yesterday, and an affirmation. So her acronym for HOPE is helping other people every day. Mm. And I'm going to add in every way, which is what you're doing. All right, everybody, we're back on tomorrow for Wisdom Wednesdays with my personal minister, Reverend Patricia Bass. She'll be sharing with us some of her wisdom. She's a delightful human being. So I will see you here tomorrow. And if you feel called, no pressure. If you feel called, please share this message with your friends. All right. And like Hailee on Instagram. All right. Big hands to Hailee. This is our way to applauding you. Woo!